Hello, very good morning, ladies and gentlemen in the Netherlands, and good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen in Indonesia. So we are in the sessions. Winner is an initiative by the Dutch Embassy in Jakarta, and NESO, the Indonesian Academy of Young Scientists, ALMI, the National Research and Innovations Agency, BRIN, the Royal Netherlands Academy of Arts and Science, KNAU, and the Dutch Research Council, NWO. So, Indonesia and Netherlands share a long history of collaborations in research and education. The aim of Winner is to celebrate, strengthen, and expand these collaborations. Winner is a yearly recurring event where researchers, education enthusiasts, policymakers, businesses, NGOs, and societal stakeholders from Indonesia and the Netherlands are invited to present results from research, discuss how to strengthen the collaborations in research and education, identify mutual priorities, share best practices, and make new connections. So, ladies and gentlemen, I am Hawis Madupa. I am ALMI Secretary General and Associate Professor at the Faculty of Fisheries and Marine Sciences, IPB University. So, this session will focus on the state of the art of Indonesian research and innovations in the field of marine and fisheries research at the environment, species, and molecular level to support the implementations of blue economy. And in these sessions, BRIN will present their large-scale investment in marine and oceanic research infrastructure, like research vessels, with innovative management for sustainable explorations of the oceans. And from the naturalists will also present about the marine biodiversity explorations. So I would like to invite Dr. Nugroho Dwi Hananto to come to the stage. So I would like to introduce him. Dr. Nugroho Dwi Hananto is the Acting Director for Directorate of Research Fleet Management of National Agency for Research and Innovations, BRIN. He was born in Salatiga, 7 June 1972. He graduated from Institut Teknologi Bandung for his graduates in physics degree, and he completed master degree in oceanography and atmospheric science of the same institutions in ITB, and he obtained his doctoral degree in the field of geophysics from the Institute of Physics de Paris in 2011 in the applications of active and passive seismic methods to study this cluster structure. And since then, he continued his career in related to this study. So many of science, Pak Nugroho already lead and co-lead marine geoscientific. How are you, Pak Nugroho?
Fine, thanks, Pak Hafiz.
So I hope you are doing well right now, and we are looking forward to your presentation. So it is actually really great to see you here because after a really a big movement from the government. So can you tell about this a little bit, sir, about your work in BRIN?
Yes, previously before BRIN, elected, I was acting director for the Deep Sea Research Center of LIPI in Ambon. So in Ambon, we try to do research mainly in the elaborating the deep sea extreme environment, consisting from starting from its geological settings, and then we go deeper into the oceanography part of the extreme environment, as well as to analyze the deep sea marine biodiversity.
Yes, sir. So since we are in the center of marine biodiversity, so your role it will be very, very important to explore more about our biodiversity. So we will have like around 15 minutes for you, sir, to present your presentation. So time is yours.
Thank you, Pak Awis. Now, my role in the BRIN is as an acting director for research, directorate for fleet research vessel of BRIN. So, my my main my main my main job is to serve the scientists with a state-of-the-art research vessel, which is operational and ready to serve to give best results for all of our scientists. Would you please put up my screen? Okay. My title of presentation is Marine and Fisheries Research in Indonesia, National Oceanographic Fleet to support sustainable use of ocean resources. As most of you already aware of, now in Indonesia, since this year, the government amalgamated all research centers into one national research and innovation agency, which at the first stage this year consists of the merge of the Indonesian Institute of Sciences, the Agency for the Application and Assessment and Application of Technology, the Nuclear Agency, and the Aerospace Agency. So at the right corner there's a research organization which mainly consists of researchers who do the research, and at the left, especially the red boxes, are the deputy which serve the scientists with tools and also infrastructure, and also to support the research that conducted by the researchers. Here is the open platform of BRIN. We have several research infrastructure laboratory, which is open to public, open to be used by the researcher, all over Indonesia as well as with their global partners. So the integrated genomic biodiversity to the lab of advanced characterization of mineral, and all the laboratory we have is open to all researchers and also with their partners, so that they can collaborate as a platform to enhance our scientific and technological development. In particular of the research vessel, BRIN now manage 5 research vessels. First is the research vessel or kapal riset Barunajaya 1, Barunajaya 2, Barunajaya 3, and Barunajaya 4. Barunajaya 1 is mainly focused on hydrographic research. Barunajaya 2 mainly for seismic research, Barunajaya 3 for geological research, and Barunajaya 4 for fisheries research. They were equipped in French in year around 1998 to 1996, so they are old enough. With length of the vessel is about 60.4 meters. Other vessel that we manage is the Barunajaya 8. She was built in Norway in 1998 with the length of 52.5. Our other vessel is Barunajaya 7. Now are in the decommissioning mission. We are now in process of grant this vessel into Universitas Patimura in Ambon. First question for us if we conduct marine research is why we do have a sea which is not flat like our football field. We have several plates interacting in our Earth. First, we have the spreading center, in which in which we have the build-up of new oceanic crust, as well as we have the continental crust and also the subduction zone. As we can see here, the spreading center consists of fast and slow spreading ridge spreading center, which depends on their speed, whether it's fast or it's slow, and magmatic and volcanic activity, tectonic and faulting in this part. This is important not only for the generation of geological and tectonic setting, but also important for the creation of deep sea environment, complete with the deep sea biodiversity. Here in this part, in the subduction zone, we can see one plate subducts each other, then create the deepest part in the world. The deepest part in the world now is recorded at Mariana Trench, which is located in Philippines with depth about 10 to 11,000 meters below sea surface. And the subduction zone, we can see there's a faulting, and which creates earthquakes, large one and small one, and also the magmatism here, where the crust is the mineral is melting and going up to form volcanic activity. Volcanic activity not only occur on land but also in the marine environment, especially in the deep and marine environment, which also facilitate extreme environment, biodiversity to live around it. And it is very special because they can survive into very extreme environment, which chemically hazardous, as well as the pressure is also very high. In Indonesia, we have all forms of the tectonic activity, which is formed in the Indonesia. You can see that most of our waters consist of deep sea environment. And our shallow sea only in the South China Sea and Java Sea. We are in the middle of Indo-Australia, which is subduct into Eurasia, and Australia, which is collided with the Pacific plate. We also experience an Indonesian through flow from Pacific Ocean to Indian Ocean, and because of the tectonic regime, we are in the Ring of Fire because we have a lot of volcanic volcanoes around the island, as well as in the sea and the submarine volcanoes. However, we also have abundance of natural resources: oil and gas, coal, minerals, fisheries, and biodiversity. We also prone to geological hazard from the sea, including tsunami and also extreme weather. If you have a look into details of the national earthquake map, we know that we have about 295 active faults, which is unknown, which is mostly on land, and also 15 megathrust segment for national hazard map, which is in the subduction zone, mainly on marine environment, and it is mostly unknown. As for the volcanoes, we have 127 type A volcanoes, which is spanning from Banda Aceh here, in west of Sumatra, south of Java, and then to Maluku and the Halmahera Island. Also, the deep sea surface features is mostly unknown. And since it's mostly unknown, it opens opportunity for new findings and new science. To elaborate on that, we need scientific collaboration with our regional and global partners. Indonesia, Nusantara, are also center of marine megabiodiversity. If you have a look into details here, we are in the heart of the coral triangle with abundant coral species. About 60% of the world coral species resides in this triangle, as well as coral reef species. We have almost 37 of world species, and 56% of the Indo-Pacific region. Here is data for gene bank, which shows that we have bacteria, animals, protista, fungi, virus, and plants, and also fish diversity database, which shows that we have globally 34,700 species. In Indonesia, we have 4,825 species, which is 13.89%. and consists of freshwater fish 1,247 and marine 3,577. I believe that if we do a very careful analysis and also exploration in our waters and freshwater and marine environment, especially in the deep sea, we can find more species and more gene bank that we can collect. Marine research in Indonesia is long before. It was pioneered by 1598 by the Dutch merchant Willem Lodewijk. So as mentioned by Pak Awis before, the interaction between Indonesia and Netherlands was long before. Made a very extensive notes on the fishes and sea mammals that he encountered during his trip to Indonesia. East India at that time, and in 1906, the Dutch United East India Company, or VOC, fitted a ship under the command of William Jans to search new lands, sea routes, and trades in the seas around Lithuania. It includes research as well in terms of oceanography and hydrography. The most impressive person is Rumphius, which is Dutch-German heritage. He stayed in Ambon and published and do research and published very excellent book at Amboinse Kunstboek or Herbarium Amboinense, a catalog of plants. At that time, which is impressive, he published 1,000 more volume, and then also he published another books, which is Amboinese Cabinet of Curiosities. In 1858, the HNMS Cashlock conducted one of few Dutch hydrographic surveys in deep water. At that time, they used 60 kilogram cannonballs as a weight and hauled by hand power, not by winch as we do it now. And they can recover Crenulum sideburgi at depth of 4,900 meters. It was very impressive at that time. And in the 1905, Fisheries Station was initiated and led by Dr. Koningsberger in Jakarta now, at the time in Pasar Minggu, and it was as a seat of the Research Center for Oceanography of BRIN. Hello? Hello, Pak, can you hear me? It seems that my connection is interrupted. Okay, right.
Please continue.
Okay. Another exceptional achievement is the expedition of Sipoga expedition in 1899 and 90,000, which again discover very intriguing results, which shows Dr. Max Weber to come into the conclusion that the Wallace line was a transitional zone, not very strict line. And they published over 16 volumes of books and publication. The last is 1986, just several years back. Second expedition is the Snellis expedition, 1929-1930. Again, using Snellius as a vessel, it collects 33,000 soundings, which is enormous at the time. For us, probably now it's normal, but at the time it is very high achievement. And expanded the hydrographic and biological data of Indonesia. As well, another expedition, Snellius II, which is occurred about 50 years later, on board at the time Lipi research vessel Samudra and Tiro, to study in details the East Indonesia. Our Question now is, what was Snellius 3 expedition? Can we initiate this Snellius 3 expedition, which inherited the glory of Siboga, Snellius 1 and Snellius 2 expedition? This question we should elaborate further at the end of my presentation. In Indonesia, we also do the oceanographic expedition afterwards. Recently, in 2018 to 2021, we conduct the transport of Indonesian seas, upwelling and mixing physics triumph, which is in collaboration between LIBI, First Institution of Oceanography in China, and University of Maryland in the US, to study the first the upwelling physics, and then the second about the sedimentation, as well as the biodiversity and falling organism on the buoys that we place in Makassar Strait and other region in Indonesia, in sort of Jakarta. This project is ongoing now, and very good result of bacteria of oceanographic evidences, including mixing, as well as the internal waves may be coming out in the future. We also do marine geoscience, which we try to find source of tsunami and also nature of the earthquakes. Here on the left, on the right panel, we can see the subduction of Indo-Australian plate to Eurasia plate that creates 2004 earthquakes and tsunami, which is very massive. And then we refine our findings, our exploration, to the deformation front of 2010 earthquakes in the Mentawai region here, to find out how tsunami can happen, triggered by not very large earthquake, magnitude 7.8, but create a very high tsunami in Mentawai region in 2010. We conclude that this hill shape, the pop-up structure here in the deformation front, may cause as a source of seafloor deformation to trigger tsunamis. In marine biodiversity, we also advance about findings the biodiversity in and around Indonesia. This findings is from Maluku, which is a checklist of Ciripedia, which is not very much people have a look at the detail on that. There's several species of Ciripedia that can be found in Maluku region and around, and if we can manage them very carefully, we can extract the materials that can be elaborated further into some type of glue, which is very strong glue. In 2008, in collaboration with the National University of Singapore, we conducted the South Java Deep Sea Biodiversity, which collect large numbers of species and consisting of marine worms, shells, crabs, fish, shrimps, lobsters, hermit crabs, starfish, and sea urchin. And most of the results have been published in Raffles Bulletin of Zoology early this year. This is very elaborative collaborative research between Indonesia and Singapore. This research was conducted on board our research vessel Barunajaya 8. Again, in marine bioscience, our colleagues here in university, Pak Habis Matupa and friends, already made a very extensive effort in divining the aDNA of marine water samplings in the shallow waters, and by using advanced technique, we can also apply those eDNA techniques to find out the characteristic of biodiversity in the deep sea, especially in submarine volcanoes that we can find in submarine volcanoes, hydrothermal vents, submarine mud volcanoes, and other ships that we can find in the deep sea. This is very important because then we can enhance to frontier part, which rarely found or rarely been uh, researched by researchers. And in seafloor mapping, we can also elaborate here one of the results of expedition Jalatitra Aurora conducted by the Pusat Hidrooceanography TNI Angkatan Laut, Pusit Sosal, which they discovered a new submarine volcanoes between Ambon and Pulau Buru. We call it Manipa volcanoes. This volcanoes is about 2,000 meters high, and it's big enough in this location, but we don't know whether this is active or not. So the roles and importance of this feature should be elaborated further using geophysical, geological, as well as to characterize the biodiversity in this area. This is some samples of the result from Index Satal. This research was conducted in the north of Sulawesi in Halmahera in collaboration with NOAA from US to study the submarine volcanoes in the Mahingitang, Karangetang, and north of Papua, in Halmahera in the region. Also, we need further, we need to go to the area beyond national jurisdiction or to find out BBNG, the biodiversity beyond natural jurisdiction, in location which is far from Indonesia, not our jurisdiction, but it's very challenging in terms of natural resources, seabed mining, as well as the biodiversity, which we are not known so far. Our challenge in oceanic research or in the marine research in this location is that we have low critical mass of researchers. We have lack of infrastructure, especially research vessels, which have ability to go to the high seas, and funding, which sometimes is not enough. BRIN at this to overcome these challenges, BRIN with a breakthrough in the oceanic research, which we do a large-scale investment in oceanic research to open the platforms and to serve national needs and as a global platform for partnership, which is we would like to purchase a new research vessel which can go at the high seas. This is multi-purpose, equipped with the most sophisticated instrument to do research in marine geoscience, in marine biodiversity and fisheries, to do research in the oceanography and atmospheric science, and also in seabed mapping. We also would like to retrofit our Barunajaya class, which have already been mentioned, that we have 5 research vessels. We would like to remodernize this vessel to give us more opportunity to sail. We also will do a capacity building, the establishment of field management unit, which comply with the business international standard. Training is important for PhD training in AU or in French, and we will provide sailing days for scientists and to encourage regional and global partners through a call of proposal on a merit system. This project is going on. Our Ministry of Finance already signed an agreement with the Agence Française de Développement, or AFD, in 8 June 2021. Now we are in terms of publishing a request of expression of interest to conduct a technical assistant. If you interested in collaborate with us as a technical assistant, you may visit this website. This website is for the announcement of the technical assistant request for expression of interest to conduct this project. As mentioned before, we would like to use our vessels, all our vessels, to do multi-purpose and multi-role scientific research consists of marine geoscience, oceanographic and atmospheric science, seabed mapping, and bioscience and fisheries. All vessels will be equipped with the latest technology, as well as mobile sorry mobile instruments which can be put on or put on all of our research vessel, consisting of the ROV, the seismic reflection instrument, and other AUV automated underwater vehicles. The, here are some ideas on how we can go further with this research vessel. Professional agenda in 2022, sorry, I made a mistake. Should be 2022. BRIN will provide about 300 sailing days of our vessel Bornajaya, which consists of 150 days around Sumatra and surroundings, meaning that Indian Ocean, Sumatra, and Mentawai Island and south of Java, and then about 150 days in eastern Indonesia, Banda Sea, including Banda Sea and Halmahera, Sulawesi, north of Sulawesi and Makassar Strait, and then here about again about 200 days for Barunajaya to operate in the Riau, North Natuna Sea and surroundings. These sailing days will be allocated for scientists, Indonesian scientists from university or from BRIN, and in collaboration with their global partners. So they have to send, if you would like to join this and to make benefit of the sailing days, you can send the proposal. The website will be coming soon, early November, to use the sailing days for next 2022. The proposal will be reviewed by peer reviewers, and then the suitable sailing days will be granted to the prioritized proposal. This is some of the ideas to do the extreme ecosystem research in the deep sea, oceanic research in the deep sea biodiversity of submarine volcanoes, which consists of 6 packages, including research cruises, geology, geophysics, oceanography, biodiversity, biotechnology, and instrumentation and engineering. As a remarks, as a trigger for our discussion now, we need to strengthen our marine and oceanic research to gather national knowledge about our natural resources in coastal, littoral, and our EEZ. We need to modernize our vessels and our other infrastructure, strategic planning, utilization of and transfer of technology is a must, and strengthening ocean research management. The knowledge should be translated and elaborated into a science-based policy to support national policies related to blue economy, enhance the research collaboration with regional and international partners are certainly needed to accelerate science and technology mastery. This effort is in the well alignment with the UN Decade of Ocean Sciences for Sustainable Development, especially to create clean ocean, healthy and resilient ocean, predictable ocean, safe ocean, sustainable harvested ocean, and transparent ocean with open access to data, information, and technologies. By that, I thank you very much, and then let's collaborate and let's discuss. Thank you, Pak Awis.
Thank you very much, Pak Nugro. I'm really enjoying your presentations. This is bringing us to the history of marine research in Indonesia. So since 1899 in Siboga expeditions, and you bringing us to current expeditions in Indonesia, it's already massive. And this is related to your last large scale investment in oceanic research. So this is really massive because this will be bringing the BRIN oceanic research fleet into the oceans, Indonesian oceans, and you are going to have like 300 sailing days. And
Exactly.
yeah, in and you mentioned that this is equal to 10,500 science days. It's
Yes.
really massive. So this will be covering like Indian Oceans, Natuna, and
Yeah.
also eastern part of Indonesia. So I think everyone here who's hearing you will be very curious about this opportunity, how to join. But before that, I would like to invite Prof. Willem Renema. So we will hearing his first his presentations, and then we can bring together all the talk show, the discussions together with you. So please come, Prof. Willem Renema. How are you, sir?
Hi. Yes, I'm fine. Thank you. How are you?
I'm really fine here. Apa kabar, Pak? Yeah, so Prof. Willem Renema is a research group leader of marine biodiversity at Naturalis Biodiversity Center in Leiden. His research focuses on the past, present, and future of shallow marine tropical ecosystem. And his research relies on a solid understanding of the ecology and evolutions of large benthic foraminifera. He has more than 20 years of experience of research in Indonesia. So he's kind of like Indonesians actually. Currently, he's a coordinator of the EU funded Mercury for the Reef and a collaborations between 11 European and Indonesian research institutes. This is focusing on the potential of turbid reefs as a refugia for coral reefs during ongoing climate change. What a massive uh, description. So what is what is your activities during the pandemic, sir?
Um, I, it was really hard. I came. I was the day that lockdown started in Indonesia was literally the day that I returned from Indonesia, and we
Mm-hmm.
were planning. We had all. I will talk about some of the plans, but we were planning, and we were really running ahead, and yeah, very enthusiastic. And then this pandemic broke out, and yeah, that sort of well made everything more difficult. Let me say it like that. And since then, I've not been in Indonesia for 1.5 year now,
Oh yeah.
which probably hasn't happened in well 25 years or something like that. So I really want to go, but yeah, you have to wait a little bit.
Yeah, it is really hard time for us as a marine biologist, especially like tropical marine biologist. So,
Now,
sir, you have
a tropical
another.
marine biologist in the Netherlands.
Yeah, so we have 15 minutes, around 15 minutes for you to present your current research, your research between Indonesia and Netherlands, and then we are continuing for the discussion. So 15 minutes is yours, sir.
Yeah. Okay, great. Thank you. Well, I feel, Barney, that a lot of what you have been saying, that my talk can be shortened quite a bit because you introduced or mentioned already a quite large part of what I am going to do. So I think there's huge opportunities for collaboration, and that should work out. I'll just tell something about myself, my work, and my experience at sea. And yeah, so I work at Naturalis most of the time at Naturalis Biodiversity Center, and I'm also affiliated to the University of Amsterdam. And I'm a visiting professor. I didn't mention that here at Universitas Hasanuddin in Makassar as well. So that's the network we work in. And Naturalis is really the national biodiversity center, and we are increasingly focusing. We got a large research grant in collaboration with some other universities in the Netherlands on species detection and identification. And that's really the core of our research. We want to be able to detect species occurrences and use those as a basis for research. And in that sense, I will mostly connect to the marine biodiversity side of the talk of Pa Nugroho. And I've been at sea quite a few. I've been at the Pelagia and in the Dutch research vessel a couple of times in the North Sea. But more recently, I've been sailing on the Sonne, the German ship, which we sailed from Auckland to Darwin in Australia. So that was a really long trip. And we have been drilling at the Joides resolution off the coast, actually very close to Indonesia, but just not in Indonesia, in the coast of Northwest Australia. And unfortunately, I must say, my only experience on an Indonesian research vessel, and that's not unfortunately because I didn't like it, but unfortunately because it would be nice to spend more time at sea in Indonesia. The only experience I have with a research vessel is the Geomarine, and then the older Geomarine where we sailed around Berau in 2003, I believe. So that's a long time ago, and it would be really nice to do more of such work. At Naturalis, I'm group leader of marine biodiversity, so focusing on marine diversity, and we have quite a strong group focusing on tropical marine and Indonesian, or at least Indonesian coral triangle marine diversity. Next slide. Or can I do that? No. The other group that is important, or that is focusing on marine biodiversity in Naturalis, is the group of Katja Pijnenburg. And she is focusing more on open ocean diversity, strong focus on plankton biodiversity, especially theropods, but also other groups. And next to that, she's also focusing on impact of ocean acidification on, for example, the calcification potential, and how it impacts these theropods and what that would mean to the ecosystem. Next slide. But I would like to go back a little bit to biodiversity and the Indonesian opportunities in Indonesian waters, I would say. And I think Wallace Line, Leideckers Line are very familiar, and certainly Wallace Line, Leidecker maybe a little bit less, by geographic divides within Indonesia, but these are entirely terrestrial. So you have the Asian fauna on the one side, and the single Asian fauna at one side of the Wallace Line, and you have the Australian fauna at the other side, at the Leideckers Line, and then in between there's Wallacea, and that's an area where you have mixed influences. But this is a pattern on land. This is not a pattern in the sea. Next slide. And in the sea, of course, there's a lot going on. Indonesian through flow as a major current is already mentioned, and that is dividing the Pacific Ocean and the Indian Ocean. And for example, in plankton research, we have data from the Pacific and we have data from the Indian Ocean, and they are very different. But only very little is known about zooplankton in Indonesian waters. And for example, like how do these groups interact, and where are the faunal breaks between these Pacific and these Indian Ocean populations, or are there maybe even separate Indonesian populations of these groups, is very poorly known. Next slide. And in part is that because these large-scale patterns that have been discovered, there are studies at really large scale, then often there's very few data from Indonesia. Like here, they sampled around Indonesia, but they didn't include samples from Indonesia. And in other studies, there's very detailed sampling in parts of Indonesia, but this merging of these scales is still a big opportunity for looking at like how do these ocean biomes communicate, and how is the exchange between these populations, and what is the timing of the differences between these areas, and how is the interaction with global change and climate change at the longer time scales, like ice ages and so on. Next. But Indonesia is not only important. I mean, this whole ocean current is not only important for the marine biodiversity and the occurrence of many taxa in Indonesia, but it's also the last remaining tropical connection between Pacific and Indian Ocean, and in that sense a really important switch in the climate. And this is the traditional way of depicting this great conveyor. And well, as you can see, there's this line is just drawn over Borneo and Java, which is, well, clearly not how the currents go. Next slide. And that the current system is way more complicated, and there's currents through the Makassar Strait, around Timor, but also through Bali Lombok. Between Sulawesi and Halmahera, there's a little bit of a current, but all these current systems have different depth at which they operate, and different water masses continue from the West Pacific warm pool into the Indian Ocean. And how much and at what depth these currents are cut off is really one of the big drivers of global climate. And well, now there are hypotheses that uplift in Indonesia was actually the driver to the onset of glaciations in the early Pleistocene. So there's this really key position also for oceanography and climate research in Indonesia. Next slide. And as Panagro already mentioned, this is a map of coral diversity, and with clearly showing the high diversity in the coral triangle and in Indonesia. And this is not only for corals, this is for many organisms, for, well, my beloved foraminifera, for sponges, fishes, many cryptic organisms. But if we look at these maps, they are based on often, or at least those for corals and those for fishes, they are based on distribution ranges and not on really actual occurrences. So if you really want to know what is going on and how biodiversity is going to react to environmental and climate change, then you will need to have occurrence data. You need to know where, because within a range of a species, it doesn't occur everywhere. It occurs only at specific places where the species likes the conditions. And so we have to transfer these data from range data to occurrence data. And well, the only way to do that is well, to sample at sea, and then many techniques. Some of the techniques mentioned, like eDNA, could be a good way of adding occurrence data to distribution maps of individual species, so we can better predict the effect of climate change. Next slide. And the other opportunity that's there, and with seagoing research, is that in part marine environments are difficult to access, and the deeper you go, the more difficult it is. But somehow there's this twilight zone of depth between 50 and 300, 400 meters, where the oceanographers don't like to go, and where the biologists can't go by diving, or very hard to go by diving. And mapping these areas will add a lot of reef habitats and different habitats to the Indonesian, what is known in Indonesia. And these are very poorly studied, and using high resolution bathymetrical data and combined with ROVs or at least good cameras, and sometimes just hand grabbing samples, is a very efficient way of looking at what's occurring there and what will that contribute to additional biodiversity in the coral triangle. Next slide. And when I started in Naturalis as a group leader, then our research was really focusing, well, everywhere but in the Netherlands. And my take was like, yeah, but that's all right if we know if everything is known in our own sea, the close by North Sea, if everything is known there, then well, we don't have to focus on, then we don't have to do a lot of research there. But that's not true. So now we are also setting up work in the Netherlands to do basically very similar things on increase species detection and recognition. Next slide. Oh, and yeah, that's okay. So and that's a bit the same with Indonesia. There's still such a huge potential on even in birds. There were still 10 new taxa described after a 4-week, 5-week expedition to somewhere in East Sulawesi. And birds are really one of the best studied organisms. So imagine that you go looking for shrimps or ostracods or marine plankton. There will be a lot of new taxa, and that will add a lot to our understanding of biodiversity and evolution and the relation to climate change. So Indonesia is really at the crossroads of this type, at the crossroads literally of the transfer from Australia to Asia, from the Pacific to the Indian Ocean, but also these currents provide a lot of opportunities for collaboration. And as I said, we need to add higher quality data to a lot of databases. So if you look at, for example, the Global Biodiversity Information Facility has indicated Indonesia or Southeast Asia as an area of interest for research and for adding records to their databases. And these are the databases that are increasingly used for study of impact of climate change on biodiversity. And then next to that, but I mentioned the strong bias in habitats that are being studied. So this would provide huge opportunities for collaboration. And just before Corona, we discussed with Pa Handoko and also with Pa Negro on well, potential for really collaborative projects that we were actually going ahead, relatively rapidly, but got stopped by Corona, and that was mostly focusing on well, large scale capacity building by staff exchange, but not so that Indonesian staff works in Naturalis, but also staff from Indonesian institutes. That Naturalis staff also works at Indonesian institutes. So it's a two-way, and it's not only about research. It's also about creation of collections. It's also about these technical aspects of the full aspects of species detection, image recognition, eDNA, DNA barcoding, 3D scanning, and things like that, to really improve this general knowledge base of species diversity in the area. Next slide. And the Netherlands is also currently renewing its research fleet, so similar to Indonesia. So the Pelagia This is a model image of it, and it's being replaced by a new one. And yeah, and we have been thinking of like what would be a great start for a potential great start for a new boat. And I must say this hasn't been shared in many occurrences yet. But what would a great start be if that ship could be part of, well, the Snellius 3, as mentioned by Panigro, where we could have a combined expedition on marine biodiversity and geology in Indonesia with the new Barunajaya and the new Pelagia in 2024 or 25, which is exactly 50 years then after the Snellius 2. So, thank you.
Thank you very much for Professor Renema. So it is really interesting to learn about your research in Indonesia. So I can say like every day can be a new taxa in Indonesia. So yeah, we are in the center of marine biodiversity, but actually probably we are underestimate our number of taxa. So what is actually the main effects to marine biodiversity in Indonesia based on your experience, Prof. Renima?
The main effect?
Yeah. What affects the biodiversity based on your experience, like more than 20 years here now?
Yeah. Well, what I see at the moment, of course, I see a lot of change. I see that the reefs are changing, but at the same time, what we also observe is that biodiversity is not changing. When it appears not to be changing that much, at least not in the groups that we study really well. But we don't know how, and there's still big questions on whether that's just a lag in response, so that the biodiversity, I mean, first the environment deteriorates, so you
Yeah.
get less coral on the reefs. In many places you do not get so much fewer corals, but more smaller corals, so you have less differentiation in your habitat, which would create less opportunity for many taxa.
Yeah.
But still, we do not observe that change yet. So maybe there's more flexibility in response, and that biodiversity still is really high. And the other thing that we have seen and that's mostly for my work in geology, is that biodiversity is really important in responding to climate change, because many groups are abundant, but there's also a lot of rare taxa. But especially in the corals, we have records, and we can see in the fossil record that if you have a big change in oceanography or in topography, that the species pool, so the number of species doesn't change that much, but the species composition, so the dominant groups of corals, do change a lot.
Yeah, thank you,
So,
Prof. Renima. So I would like to invite to join us, Pak Nugroho, to the stage. Yeah, Pak Nugroho. So it is really connecting between both presentations. So there are a lot of facts that are already mentioned by Prof. Renima, that the Indonesian true flow, the effects of Indian and Pacific Oceans, and there are really a big potential to explore more species in Indonesia. So based on your presentation, Pak Nugroho, that the Java Sea expeditions, they revealed more species in the deep sea. So what is actually what needs to be done now? So we know the problem, and what is the actions right now, Pak Nugroho? Please elaborate further. Your sound still muted, Pak Nugroho.
Thank you, Pak Awis, and thank you, Pak Willem Renema, for your excellent presentation as well. What need to be done now is just to consolidate ourselves, researchers in Indonesia and with their collaborative partners overseas, globally, to make a very good proposal. In our side, from BRIN, we already prepare the facility, the infrastructure, which is research vessel, as well as laboratories, as well as sufficient funds to manage the vessel. So in our framework now, you need the researchers do not need to pay for the vessel. You just need to make a good proposal in order to be granted to use the vessel for certain days. You just need to think about your research, not how to manage vessel. We do manage vessel. We do buy the gasoline or solars. We do hire the crews. The scientists now, their job is to put very nice proposal, the best proposal that they can have to tackle the what you call that, the state of the art issues that you want to address using our infrastructure. That's what to be done now.
Yes, thank you very much, Pak Nugroho. So I, as a scientist, actually right now in Indonesia, we have like difficulties to find like updated and frontier equipment. So sometimes the one that we already have to explore more about the biodiversity, we are limited by the equipment. So how do you encourage the scientists right now that okay, this is the time for us to move on?
So in our time frame of 2022, in the start of this management, research fleet management, we try to restart and to renew the vessel that we have, to modernize the vessel we have, and then also bring now build infrastructures, laboratories in Cipinong, Serpong, in Yogyakarta, in Lampung, and in several parts, which consist of high-end technologies. And then 2022, we start to build our new vessel until 2024. So in 2024, we will have a new one, which we can go globally. I suggest. So in next year, starting from 2022, we start with new management and with new, which modernized existing vessel. So that's our timeline. So if scientists would like to use several high-tech research vessels, then just let me know. We try to find out how we can provide you with the instrument.
Okay, thank you very much, Pak Nugroho. So Prof. Renima, so we know that there is like a long history of Indonesian and Netherlands research in this case in the marine biodiversity. So we know that now we are looking for where Indonesia and the Netherlands can collaborate, right? So right now in these situations. So do you think that this marine biodiversity is still or marine area still really a good area for collaborations? Please elaborate this further.
Yes, I do. And it's not only marine, but marine definitely is. And as we said, there have been these expeditions in 1900s and 1980s, and comparing the results of and revisiting those areas would, for example, be a really nice and added value on like not only to show what's there, but also to have a look at like how did it change. So yeah, I mean that's one of the very simple ones as a really direct research question. And in other ways, I think that's the power that we have together in understanding biodiversity is really strong. And as I say, by staff exchanges and learning each other's techniques, that there is a really good opportunity for collaboration. And we are looking into ways, for example, to have a summer school where we can, and you're actually thinking about doing that at Ambon or maybe further east in Indonesia, where we can actually work together and really learn from each other what we are doing.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Prof. Renima. So this questions goes both to you. And would we naturalists be a potential partner to support BRIN's investment in marine research vessels?
Of course, yes. Naturalists can be partners for every one of us, with Indonesian scientists, and also in using this large-scale investment or help or assist us in terms of technical assistance. We, as mentioned before, we open a tender for technical assistance. You can have a look at the details on the requirements of the REOI, request expression of interest, and if you're interested in, then just talk to us. This opportunity opens for everybody. Basically, it is funded by the AFD, the Association for City Development, but it will be based on international tenders.
Okay.
Especially for European Union countries.
Yes, thank
and
you, Pak.
as I mentioned before, Pak Renama, I think we need to think about heavily about having Stelios 3 expedition.
Yes. No, yeah, I totally agree. I mean, I totally agree with everything you say. It's like, yes, we certainly interested, and if there's anything we can do by supporting, by having letters of support for the project of renewing, then definitely we can do that. And at the other side, yeah, the scientific interest, for example, in the plankton work and in the twilight zone of deeper marine diversity is definitely there. It's really I think it's really important to study that, and that's a big unknown. We just don't know what's there.
Yes.
May I add something, Pak Abis?
Yeah, please, Pak.
Instead of just going to South Java Sea, we can also target it into Simon. We have several Simons in North Sulawesi, in the Maluku, especially in everywhere. We don't know the Simon is active or not. So that's one target. Simon is a happy ecosystem for deep sea environment, which is we understand that there's a lot of things to investigate on how such a biodiversity can exist in the deep waters, in very extreme environment. I think this topic is very important for us.
Yes. So we have actually two big tasks. First is mapping the habitats, including the deep sea habitats. And the second is actually describing species or detecting species, because many current the latest manuscript or publications mentioning about lack of database in Indonesia. So besides curating the species, but we need to have a massive work to describe species in Indonesia. So because as Renima mentioning about, we have to search more with the technology. So what is the most challenging right now to describing species, Prof. Renima?
I think that the biggest challenge I think is availability of researchers and funding. I mean, and we have the technology. The technology is there but yeah, it's still a lot of work. So in one way, I think taxonomists have to rethink the process of describing species so that that is more efficient. And the other thing that we can work on is like making observing, and that's not necessarily describing species, but recognizing species, make observing more easy, and look at technical tools on observing taxa. For example, by having cameras mounted on landers, and you can combine that um, with artificial intelligence, image recognition, but you can also combine it with citizen science, so that actually you connect more to the general public, not only the scientists who can just, like they did with solar systems and with pictures from the sky, and they just have citizens and non-scientists, and they just indicate like, oh, this is something weird, and then somebody who can judge whether it's really weird or not can have a look at it and then go further with identification. I think we really have to think about these kind of things, and in that way we would really increase the knowledge of biodiversity in every area. Basically, it's a general tool and it's a general problem. It's not only Indonesia that has this problem. We have it everywhere.
Yeah, I think the large investment that has been planned by BRINs right now, I think it's perfectly matched with the roles of the Naturalist Biodiversity Center to make like a capacity building, and probably this will be really a good match for like creating more species existing, and then I think the future, because as mentioned by Prof. Renema, that there are still many like cryptic species on the ground, and then there are a lot of species needs to be described. DNA barcoding needs to be put in the database, so we can fostering our research in this session. So I have one questions to both of you. So how to concretize this thing. So I really hoping that after this winner that there is like a real, because there is already like a framework provided by brains right now, and then we know that the capacity of naturalists. So how to concretize this, please, Pak Nugroho?
I think Indonesian researchers and naturalist researchers should have a solid agreement first on how you can cooperate. Then we can facilitate you. You know.
So how about, please, Prof. Rinima?
Yeah, I agree, and I think that as I say, we have the plans, the plans for the staff training and etc. We're there. We just have to restart following Corona, because we did start, then we got kicked back, and I think that we just have to pick up, and we have to look also not only for Naturalis but for the bigger, because for the bigger science base within the Netherlands and within Indonesia, like who, if we what if first we have to express really whether a long-term collaboration towards an expedition like Snellius 3 would be, we are into that, and then if so, then we have to find a support base within the entire, well, basically the entire society, because it will be a big thing.
Hey, thank you very much, Dr. Nugroho Dwi Hananto and Prof. Willem Renema. I think there are still a lot needs to be discussed around marine biodiversity, but our time is up. So I think the real collaboration needs to be done, and there are a lot like a large investment by brains needs to be concretized after this, and then we can invite more researchers from Netherlands and Indonesia working together to explore more about marine biodiversity, especially as mentioned by Dr. Nugroho about the deep sea explorations, the deep sea mapping habitat, and etc. So we can use like a frontier tools, technology to explore more about the marine biodiversity. Thank you very much, Dr. Nugroho Dwi Hananto, and then Prof. William Renema. It's really an honor for me to host you both, and I hope that there are more research together between Indonesia and Netherlands in the future. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining us here in these sessions.
Thank you.
Thank you.